The night sky holds humanity's oldest stories. Long before telescopes, people looked up and saw a living cosmos of gods and monsters, a celestial drama written in starlight. This video uncovers the untold space narratives that bridge the gap between ancient myth and modern science. By the end, you will see the constellations not as random stars, but as the first scientific models, revealing a hidden conversation between our imagination and the universe itself. We will explore why cultures across the world shared tales of world-ending floods and what a dying star has to do with the birth of a god. What secret is your favorite constellation keeping? That impulse to find a bear or a hunter in the stars was more than just a creative exercise. It was a fundamental human need to understand. The night sky was the first great mystery, a swirling chaos of countless lights. By drawing lines between them, our ancestors did something remarkable. They created the very first maps. These were not maps of land, but maps of time. The regular, predictable dance of the constellations became a celestial clock. When the constellation Orion began to dominate the winter sky, it was a signal, a story told in stars that said the cold months were coming. When the Pleiades cluster appeared at a certain point, it might have been time to plant crops or prepare for a seasonal flood. This was science in its purest form, observation leading to prediction. The myths were the user manuals for this cosmic clock. The story of Persephone's annual descent into the underworld, for instance, beautifully explained the Greek understanding of the seasons, mirroring the sun's changing path. Every culture had its own version, its own stories etched in light, turning the overwhelming void into a familiar and navigable space. This deep, intertwined origin of story and science is the key that unlocks our first major celestial mystery. These flood stories echo with a strange and unsettling harmony. Across the globe, from the icy north to the heart of the Amazon, our ancestors whispered of a time when the waters rose to swallow the world. For centuries, we dismissed these tales as powerful metaphors, stories about divine punishment or moral cleansing. But what if the truth is far more concrete? What if these myths are humanity's first, raw attempt at disaster science? The geological record now reveals that our planet's history is punctuated by sudden, violent catastrophes. Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age was retreating, the Earth experienced dramatic climate swings. Vast ice sheets melted, causing sea levels to rise by hundreds of feet, swallowing coastal lands that early humans once called home. Some scientists point to evidence of a potential comet impact around this time, an event that could have triggered wildfires, tsunamis, and a dramatic cooling of the climate. Imagine a generation that witnessed the very ground beneath their feet vanish into the sea, or a sky filled with fire and falling rock, followed by years of unending winter. How would you explain such an event? You would not write a scientific paper. You would tell a story of gods and anger and a great flood that cleansed the earth. The narrative of Noah is not a simple weather report. It is a trauma response etched into our collective memory. The details may be mythologized, but the core event, the terrifying reality of a world unmade by water, feels chillingly real. This is the first powerful bridge between story and science. Our ancestors were not just storytellers. They were the first historians, using the tools they had to record a cataclysm that shaped their entire existence. This realization forces a profound question. If a global flood is recorded in our myths, what other cosmic dramas are written in the stars, waiting for us to learn how to read them? These wanderers were the original celestial rebels, refusing to follow the steady rhythm of the stars. Their erratic paths demanded an explanation, and the human mind, ever a pattern-seeking engine, provided one of breathtaking creativity. The Romans did not just randomly assign names, they built a system. The swift, elusive Mercury, never straying far from the sun, perfectly embodied the quick-footed messenger god. Venus, brilliant and beautiful in the dawn or evening sky, could only be the goddess of love. The blood-red hue of Mars naturally suggested a warrior's spirit. And Jupiter, that steady, overwhelming beacon, was the only fitting namesake for the king of the gods. This was not mere superstition. It was a sophisticated act of classification. By giving these points of light personalities and domains, ancient astronomers were creating a predictive model. The myth of the gods became a cosmological framework. When Mars and Jupiter appeared to draw close in the sky, it was not just a conjunction, it was a celestial council, a meeting of the war god and the king. The entire dramatic saga of Olympus, with its alliances and conflicts, was an early theory of planetary motion, a narrative to explain the complex gravitational dance happening overhead. The stories gave meaning to the mathematics long before the mathematics were fully understood. This brilliant fusion of observation and imagination set the stage for our next great celestial companion, one whose constant presence has shaped our very perception of time and life itself. While the planets wandered, one celestial body remained a constant, predictable companion in its changes. The moon's silent, rhythmic dance from dark to full and back again became humanity's first and most reliable calendar. Its phases painted the passage of time not in days, but in cycles of renewal, growth, and rest. This universal rhythm of change was so fundamental that cultures across the world personified it through a powerful and consistent archetype, the goddess. The Greek Selene driving her chariot across the night, the Roman Luna casting her soft light, and the Chinese Chang residing in her cold palace. All these figures embody the moon's cyclical nature and its deep connection to fertility, intuition, and the flow of time. These were not arbitrary assignments. The myths themselves are a brilliant narrative encapsulation of the moon's scientific influence. The gravitational pull that governs our ocean's tides, the lunar cycle that guides the reproductive patterns of countless species, even the human menstrual cycle, all of this was observed and understood intuitively long before the physics was named. The moon was seen as a force that pulled not just on water but on life itself. Consider the poignant tale of Chang. She consumes an elixir of immortality and flees to the moon, forever separated from the warmth of the world. This is a stunningly accurate poetic understanding. The moon is permanent in our sky, a constant companion, yet it is also distant and cold, a stark contrast to the sun's vibrant, life-giving energy. The myth explains its nature through story, capturing its eternal but sterile beauty. This lunar mythos represents a profound step in human thought, the recognition of observable, repeatable natural law. The moon's gentle, predictable pull on our world and our imaginations, however, guides us inevitably toward a far more violent and dramatic celestial force. The predictable rhythm of the moon could be shattered in an instant. Without warning, the day would turn to a chilling twilight, the sun's life-giving light extinguished by an unseen force. A solar eclipse was perhaps the most terrifying event an ancient sky watcher could witness. It defied all logic. The sun, the ultimate symbol of power and permanence, was being devoured. Cultures worldwide, from the Vikings who spoke of the wolf skull to the ancient Chinese who feared a celestial dragon, told the same essential story. A monstrous entity was attacking the very heart of the cosmos. the response was not passive fear, but active, ritualized defense. The clamor of banging pots and shouted prayers was not mere superstition. It was a desperate, logical attempt to fight back, to scare the beast away and restore order to a universe gone mad. This myth was a profound act of scientific reasoning. It identified a cause for a terrifying effect, and most importantly, it provided a solution. It gave people a sense of agency in the face of cosmic chaos. We now know the truth is a silent, majestic alignment. The moon, our constant companion, slides perfectly between the Earth and the Sun, its shadow racing across the planet's surface. The myth of the dragon was a placeholder for this precise orbital mechanics. It was an imperfect but deeply functional model, a story that preserved the memory and meaning of the event for generations until the mathematics could catch up. This narrative of a dying sun, even a temporary one, inevitably leads our imagination to a far more final darkness. What stories did our ancestors tell about the sun's permanent end? The fear was palpable as the days grew shorter and the nights stretched on. With each passing sunset, the world grew colder and darker, a slow retreat of the sun's vital energy. For ancient peoples, the winter solstice was not a date on a calendar. It was a moment of supreme crisis, a terrifying question posed to the cosmos. Would the sun continue its decline, fading into nothingness and leaving the world in permanent frozen darkness? The answer they discovered in the sky was a profound reassurance, and they told the story through the lives of their gods. In Egypt, the god Osiris was murdered and dismembered, his pieces scattered, only to be resurrected by his wife Isis. His death and rebirth mirrored the sun's journey, its power seeming to die in the winter only to be miraculously restored. The Persian god Mithra was also celebrated on the solstice, his birth bringing the unconquered sun back into the world. These were not merely abstract religious tales, they were the direct result of meticulous, long-term observation, a celestial truth codified into narrative. The myth of the dying and reborn god was an empirical fact. The solstice was the observable turning point, the proof that the sun's decline was not a final death but a temporary retreat. As soon as the shortest day passed, the light began its slow, steady return. This narrative provided more than just comfort. It was a framework for survival, a promise that the harsh winter months had a limit, that life would inevitably renew itself. The deep scientific reality behind this global story is the simple, constant tilt of the Earth's axis. Our planet does not stand upright in its orbit. It leans, and as we journey around the sun, this tilt alternately presents our hemisphere toward and then away from its light. The sun does not die and get reborn. We simply turn our face back toward the warmth. This beautiful, mechanical dance in the void is the truth that our ancestors personified in their most powerful stories of sacrifice and resurrection. This very same cycle of stellar death and rebirth plays out on a far grander scale, written in the life and explosive end of the stars themselves. The orderly progression of the heavens was sometimes broken by a miracle. A new star, blazing with an intensity that rivaled the planets, would appear without warning in a part of the sky that had been empty just the night before. It would shine for weeks or months, a brilliant, silent herald, before gradually fading back into the void. The Chinese court astronomers meticulously recorded one such guest star in the year 1054, a point of light so bright it was visible even during the day. We now know this was the supernova that gave birth to the Crab Nebula, the expanding remnant of a star that tore itself apart in a cataclysmic explosion. How could such an event be understood except as a moment of divine significance? A new light in the fixed tapestry of the constellations could only mean one thing: the birth or death of a celestial being. Many scholars have pointed to a similar event as a potential explanation for the Star of Bethlehem, a sudden, inexplicable beacon that guided the wise men. Whether it was a supernova or a rare planetary conjunction, the narrative need was the same. The universe had broken its own rules, and humanity rushed to supply the story. The science behind these apparitions is as dramatic as any myth. A supernova is the spectacular death of a massive star, a final, violent outburst that, for a brief moment, can outshine an entire galaxy. In that single, fiery event, we find the physical truth behind the stories of gods and heroes appearing in the heavens. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, every element heavier than hydrogen and helium, was forged in the heart of a star and scattered across the cosmos by an explosion just like this. The death of one star is the literal birth of everything else, seeding the universe with the raw materials for new stars, new planets, and ultimately, new life. That guest star recorded by the Chinese was not just a story, it was a cosmic delivery of the very elements that would one day form our world. This stunning connection forces a humbling thought. Our solar system, with our sun at its center, is also part of this endless cycle of stellar life and death. What will happen when our own star reaches the end of its life? Our own sun's eventual fate is a quiet fade, not a cataclysmic blast, but the cycle it is part of is written in a rhythm even more immense than stellar life and death. This rhythm governs a celestial clock so slow its hands take 26,000 years to complete a single rotation. It is called the Precession of the Equinoxes. Picture the Earth not as a perfect, steady sphere, but as a spinning top that is ever so slowly wobbling. This wobble, caused by the gravitational tug of the Sun and Moon on our planet's slight bulge, gradually shifts the direction in which Earth's axis points in space. Over this vast cycle, the North Star changes. Polaris holds that title now, but in the time of the ancient Egyptians, it was the star Thuban. In 12,000 years, it will be the brilliant Vega. This wobble also means that the backdrop of stars against which the Sun rises on the spring equinox slowly shifts backwards through the constellations. 2,000 years ago, the Sun rose in the constellation Aries. Today, it rises in Pisces, and one day it will rise in Aquarius. This is the astronomical reality behind the myth of the Great Year, or the Platonic Year, a concept found in numerous ancient traditions. This grand cycle was not discovered in a single lifetime. It was pieced together over centuries, a pattern so vast it could only be detected through the patient, accumulated records of generations of sky watchers. They noticed that the familiar stars were not fixed for all eternity, but were marching to a beat almost too slow to hear. Unable to explain it with gravity or astrophysics, they wove this slow celestial dance into a metaphysical framework, the concept of astrological ages. Each 2,000-year period, as the equinox sun moved into a new constellation, was said to herald a new age for humanity, with the impending age of Aquarius symbolizing a future era of enlightenment and innovation. While the astrological interpretations are not scientific, the human impulse behind them is profound. Our ancestors detected a cosmic clock ticking on a scale beyond any human timescale, and they told a story about it. They looked at a 26,000-year pattern and dared to find a narrative to place human destiny within the largest possible frame. This deep desire to find meaning in the slow, grand motions of the cosmos often focused not just on cycles, but on specific, mysterious objects that defied all explanation for millennia. Among the countless points of light, one small cluster holds a uniquely universal story. The Pleiades, a shimmering knot of stars nestled in the constellation Taurus, appears in the oral traditions of cultures separated by vast oceans. The Greeks knew them as the Seven Sisters, nymphs transformed into stars to escape the relentless pursuit of the hunter Orion. On the other side of the world, Aboriginal Australian sky lore also tells of seven sisters, the Ugarillia, fleeing from a man in the sky represented by the stars in Orion's belt. The Cherokee in North America, the Maori in New Zealand, and ancient cultures in Japan all shared a strikingly similar narrative, a celestial tale of seven sisters and a hunter. How is it possible for such a specific story to emerge independently across the globe? The answer lies not in ancient contact, but in a shared human experience of looking up at the same, slightly puzzling celestial sight. This cluster is noticeably tight and distinct from the surrounding stars, a small, hazy group that immediately draws the eye, and to most people under clear, dark skies, it presents a gentle challenge. You see 6 stars, the 7th is elusive, flickering at the very edge of visibility. This simple, observable fact that one star seems to be missing became the core of the myth. The story of the lost or hidden sister was a direct narrative explanation for a genuine astronomical puzzle. The star named Pleione is a variable star, its brightness changing over time. In some eras, it might have been more easily visible, and in others, it faded just enough to vanish from naked eye view. Our ancestors noticed this subtle change and wove it into their most enduring stories, a beautiful testament to how the human mind seeks to resolve mystery with meaning. This universal narrative, born from a faint glimmer in a star cluster, demonstrates a profound truth. When faced with the same cosmic riddle, humanity, in its scattered corners of the world, often arrives at the same beautiful answer. That impulse to explain a single, flickering star leads us to consider an even more profound and solitary point of light, one that has captivated and terrified humanity for centuries. That solitary, brilliant point of light held the fate of an entire civilization in its annual return. For the ancient Egyptians, the star Sirius disappeared below the horizon for a period of about 70 days each year. Its reappearance just before the dawn, an event called the heliacal rising, was not just a celestial spectacle, it was the most important news of the year. At the very moment Sirius broke free from the sun's glare and became visible again, the Nile River would begin its life-giving flood. The coincidence was perfect, predictable, and absolute. The river's inundation deposited rich, fertile silt across the farmlands, turning the desert edges into a breadbasket and ensuring another year of plenty. This was not a vague correlation. It was a cause for celebration, a signal to prepare the fields and the foundation of their entire agricultural cycle. To deify this star as the goddess Sopdet was to acknowledge its supreme practical power. The myth of Sopdet rising was the official start of their new year, a narrative that perfectly packaged a complex astronomical and hydrological reality. This was science encoded as divine will. The survival of millions depended on accurately reading this one star's message, and the story of the goddess ensured that the observation was sacred, remembered, and ritualized for generations. The entire Egyptian calendar, one of the most accurate of the ancient world, was built upon this celestial anchor. The myth was the user interface for a sophisticated environmental monitoring system. It translated the silent, mechanical motions of the cosmos into a story that dictated when to plant, when to harvest, and when to move to higher ground. This profound, direct link between a specific star and the rhythm of life on Earth stands as one of the most powerful examples of myth as applied science. The cosmos was not a distant mystery. It was a partner in survival, its stories written directly into the rising of the waters and the success of the harvest. That great celestial river, the Milky Way, has always demanded an explanation. Its hazy, luminous band arching across the darkness is not a collection of distinct points, but a continuous, flowing presence. To the ancient Greeks, this was the river of milk, a stream of divine nourishment created when the goddess Hera spilled her milk across the heavens. On the other side of the planet, Aboriginal Australian traditions often saw this same band not as a river, but as a cosmic serpent, a great creator being weaving its way through the dreamtime. These interpretations feel wildly different, a river of milk versus a celestial snake, yet they share a profound, intuitive insight. Both myths describe the Milky Way not as a random scattering of light, but as a single, coherent entity, a unified structure with a distinct form and a palpable sense of motion. The human mind, looking up at that unresolved glow, correctly perceived a whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. They saw a river flowing through the void, or a serpent coiled around the world. We now know the science behind that glow. We live inside a vast, spinning disk of stars, gas, and dust, and when we look toward the constellation Sagittarius, we are peering edge-on into the crowded central plane of our own galaxy. That milky, serpentine band is the combined light of hundreds of billions of stars, so distant that their individual points blur into a single, flowing river of light. The myth of the cosmic serpent is a stunningly accurate metaphor. It captures the scale, the sinuous morphology, and the dynamic nature of the galactic disk long before any telescope could prove it. Our ancestors looked at a mystery and, through story, grasped a fundamental truth about our place in the cosmos. We are not just looking at the sky, we are looking at our home, a single structure of unimaginable size. And if this is our home, what other wonders lie in the dark spaces between the stars? That shadowy borderland at the edge of our solar system has always sent messengers. Long-period comets, those spectacular, icy visitors that grace our skies only once every few thousand years, originate from this deep freeze. They are the souls, if you will, escaping the frozen underworld for a brief, blazing journey into the inner warmth of the sun. The ancient Romans saw a comet and called it a stella crinita, a star with hair, and took it as an omen of a great leader's death. They were not entirely wrong. In a poetic sense, a comet is a death, the dramatic dissolution of a primordial ice ball as it plunges too close to our star. But it is also a rebirth, a spectacular display that seeds the inner solar system with water and organic compounds, the very ingredients of life. This cycle of an object departing the cold, dark realm to blaze a brilliant path before being destroyed or cast back out mirrors countless mythological journeys to the land of the dead. The hero or spirit travels to a distant, bleak underworld, retrieves something of value or gains knowledge, and returns transformed, if they return at all. The comet does the same. It voyages from the Oort cloud's perpetual twilight, brings us a spectacular display and a delivery of primordial material, and is either consumed by the sun or slingshotted back into the darkness. These icy travelers are the natural bridge between the mythological concept of a distant afterlife and the physical reality of our solar system's final frontier. They are the proof that the edge of our world is not empty but teeming with frozen potential, occasionally reminding us of its presence with a streak of fire across the heavens. A streak of fire in the night sky was never just a beautiful sight, it was a crack in the universe's facade. For millennia, the sudden apparition of a comet, with its ghostly tail sweeping across the familiar constellations, signaled one thing: doom. Its arrival was untimely, unpredictable, and utterly chaotic, a lawless intruder in the orderly dance of the planets. Roman emperors saw them as portents of their own demise. Medieval peasants viewed them as fiery swords of divine wrath. This universal fear was not mere superstition. It was a logical, if primitive, form of risk assessment. The established order of the sky, and by extension life on Earth, had been violated. Something from the outside had arrived without warning, and the human mind, honed by millennia of survival, immediately calculated the threat. We now understand the science of these visitors, these dirty snowballs from the solar system's frozen outskirts. As a comet swings perilously close to the sun, solar radiation boils its icy surface, blasting gas and dust into the spectacular, shimmering tail that can stretch for millions of miles. The myth of the Harbinger, however, contained a chilling grain of truth. While most comets are harmless spectacles, a large one on a collision course with Earth carries the power to rewrite history. The extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago is widely attributed to the catastrophic impact of a massive asteroid or comet, an event that cleared the stage for the rise of mammals. The ancient fear was not of the light show, but of the sudden, exogenous disruption it represented. The narrative of the comet as a bringer of death and change was humanity's first intuition of planetary defense. It was a story that preserved the memory of cosmic vulnerability, a warning shouted across generations that the universe is not always a friendly place. That deep-seated fear of something from the void, challenging our fragile sense of security, echoes in our modern fascination with a far more elusive and mysterious cosmic phenomenon. The profound silence our ancestors interpreted as divine inscrutability now echoes in a modern scientific puzzle. A physicist named Enrico Fermi, looking up at the same vast sky, framed it with a simple, devastating question. If the universe is teeming with the potential for life, where is everybody? The Fermi paradox confronts the deep quiet between the stars, a silence that feels increasingly loud the more we learn about the cosmos's immense scale and age. This is the scientific evolution of an ancient human experience. For millennia, people raised prayers and sacrifices to the heavens, seeking a sign, a response from the gods they believed resided there. More often than not, the only answer was the wind and the unchanging stars. The gods were distant, their motives mysterious, their communication indirect. The Fermi paradox mirrors this theological silence with a technological one. Our most powerful telescopes and radio dishes scan the same void, listening for a signal, any signal that would break the cosmic quiet. So far, we have heard nothing. Myth offered a narrative answer to this silence, suggesting that the divine operates on a plane beyond our understanding. Science, in its place, offers a spectrum of hypotheses. Perhaps life is common, but intelligence is a great filter, an evolutionary hurdle that nearly every civilization fails to cross, extinguishing itself before it can reach the stars. Or maybe we live in a cosmic zoo, a protected planet deliberately isolated by advanced beings observing us from a distance. Another possibility is that the universe is simply too vast, and the timelines for civilizations to overlap are cruelly short. All these scientific answers share a core experience with the oldest myths. We are alone with our questions, gazing into a quiet expanse. This great silence, whether framed as the mystery of the gods or the emptiness of space, forces a humbling re-evaluation of our own significance. Are we a miracle, a solitary spark of consciousness in a sterile cosmos? Or are we simply not yet worthy, or perhaps not yet capable, of hearing the conversation that is already happening all around us? The silence is not an end but a beginning. It compels us to listen more carefully and to consider what our own voices might one day contribute to the cosmic story. This fine-tuning of the universe is so precise it feels like a miracle. The fundamental forces that hold atoms together, the strength of gravity, the exact energy state of a carbon atom, if any one of these values were altered by even a fraction, our universe would be sterile. Stars would not ignite, complex molecules would never form, and life would be an impossibility. This is the anthropic principle, a modern scientific observation that the cosmos seems eerily designed for our existence. It is a puzzle that echoes the very first stories we ever told about our origins, from the Genesis account of a deity speaking order from chaos, to the Hopi story of Spider-Woman carefully singing the world into existence from the void. Creation myths share a profound common thread. They assert that the universe was made with intention, that it was shaped specifically to become a home for conscious life. The scientific and the mythological answers diverge dramatically, of course. One points to a creator, the other to a possible multiverse where every physical constant is tried, and we simply happen to live in the one rare version that permits us to be here. Or perhaps it is just a cosmic fluke, a one in a trillion shot, yet both are human responses to the same breathtaking observation. Our universe is not just neutral, it is, in countless specific and measurable ways, hospitable. The ancient myths were our first cosmological models, narrative frameworks built to answer the most fundamental question of all. Why is there something, a universe that allows for us, rather than nothing? This deep-seated need to find purpose in the physical parameters of reality pushes us to the very edge of understanding, forcing us to confront the nature of existence itself. Every culture whispers of an unseen world just beyond the veil. From the Celtic Fae in their hollow hills to the Japanese kami inhabiting ancient forests, humanity has always sensed that reality is more than what meets the eye. These spirits and forces were the original architects of the inexplicable, the reason a crop might fail or a sudden fortune arrive. They represented a hidden layer of causality, an entire reality operating just outside our senses, yet fundamentally shaping our own. Modern cosmology has uncovered its own version of this invisible world, a substance so enigmatic we can only call it dark matter. This is not some rare or distant material. It is the primary substance of the cosmos, making up roughly 85% of all matter in the universe. We cannot see it, touch it, or interact with it through any known means except one, gravity. Its presence is revealed only by its immense gravitational pull, a ghostly hand that guides the rotation of galaxies and bends the fabric of space itself. Without this unseen scaffolding, galaxies would fly apart, their stars scattering into the void. The myth of the spirit world and the science of dark matter are both profound acknowledgments of our own perceptual limits. They are narratives born from the evidence of things unseen, from the observable effects of an invisible cause. Our ancestors felt the wind and heard the rustle in the trees and knew a spirit was present. Our scientists measure the impossible speed of a star at the edge of a galaxy, and no dark matter must be there. The search for this hidden component of reality is one of the greatest quests in physics, a hunt for a ghost that mirrors humanity's ancient desire to map the unseen realms. This hidden architecture forces a humbling thought. If we have been missing 85% of the universe's matter all along, what other fundamental truths are hiding in plain sight, just beyond the edge of our perception? That primal fear of a devouring abyss was given a name and a face long before we understood its scientific counterpart. Ancient mariners whispered of Charybdis, a monstrous whirlpool lurking in a narrow strait, capable of dragging entire ships and their crews into a watery grave without a trace. This was not just a story about a dangerous current. It was a narrative about a fundamental boundary in the world, a point of no return from which nothing, not even the strongest vessel, could ever escape. The terror of Charybdis was the terror of being unmade by a force of pure, indifferent consumption. Centuries later, our telescopes revealed a truth that echoes this ancient dread with stunning precision. A black hole is the cosmic Charybdis. Its event horizon is that same mythical point of no return, not in water, but in the fabric of space-time itself. Within that boundary, the gravitational pull becomes so infinitely strong that the universe's ultimate speed limit, the velocity of light, is not enough to win freedom. Everything that crosses that threshold, every atom, every ray of light, is pulled inexorably toward the central singularity, a point of infinite density where the known laws of physics simply cease to apply. The myth of the ship-swallowing vortex was an astonishingly accurate premonition of this astrophysical reality. Both concepts speak to a deep, instinctual human understanding of absolute destruction, of a void so complete it consumes even information itself. Yet from this narrative of ultimate endings, a new and even more wondrous story begins to emerge. For in the very heart of this cosmic destruction, scientists now believe may lie the seeds of creation, a potential gateway to entirely new realities. Those luminous, cloud-like smudges in the telescope's eye were once thought to be nothing more than cosmic islands or ethereal vapors. Ancient myths often described creation emerging from a formless, watery chaos, a primordial soup of potential. The Babylonian epic Enuma Elish tells of a time when only the gods of fresh and salt water existed, mingled together in a single, undefined mass. This narrative intuition was uncannily accurate. We now understand that these nebulae are not just clouds, they are cosmic wombs. Within their swirling depths of hydrogen, helium, and stardust, gravity begins its slow, inexorable work. A pocket of gas grows denser, pulling in more material, its core heating up until nuclear fusion ignites in a brilliant flash. A star is born. This process of gravitational collapse, of structure emerging from chaos, is the scientific reality behind the myth of the world egg, a singular entity that contains the blueprint for an entire universe waiting to hatch. The story of creation from a void was humanity's way of describing the profound transition from nothingness to somethingness, from potential to reality. Every glowing nebula is a testament to that ongoing creative process, a stellar nursery where the raw materials of future solar systems are already coalescing around newborn suns. The birth of a star is only the beginning of the story, for where there are new suns, the possibility of new worlds and new life inevitably follows. The search for paradise has always pointed toward the horizon. For the ancient Greeks, this was the Elysian Fields, a blissful realm reserved for the most virtuous heroes, lying far across the impassable Western Sea. It was a geographical expression of a spiritual hope, a perfect world just beyond the edge of the known map. Today, our maps have expanded to encompass the galaxy, and our ships are not made of wood, but of glass and metal orbiting the Earth. Telescopes like Kepler and TESS are our modern Argo ships, sailing the cosmic ocean not for a single mythical island, but to catalogue an entire archipelago of alien worlds. They do not look for the faint glow of divine shores, but for the subtle, telltale dimming of a star's light as a planet passes in front of it, a tiny shadow revealing a new world. This scientific quest has transformed the abstract longing for a promised land into a tangible, growing list of coordinates. We have discovered thousands of these exoplanets, many of them rocky worlds orbiting within the so-called habitable zone, the distance from their star where liquid water could theoretically exist. The myth of a distant paradise was the human heart daring to believe in the possibility of another Earth. Science is now delivering the evidence, yet with every new world added to the catalogue, a deeper and more pressing question emerges. Finding an island is one thing, but how do we know if it is truly a blessed isle, teeming with life, or merely a barren rock? The dream of Elysium forces us to confront the immense challenge of detecting not just a world, but a world that lives. Our own biological story might not have started here. The theory of panspermia suggests a radical possibility that the very seeds of life, the amino acids and organic compounds essential for biology, hitched a ride to Earth on asteroids and comets. We are, in a very real sense, children of the cosmos. This is not a new idea, only a new way of framing an ancient human intuition. The Greek poet Hesiod wrote of Gaia, the earth, being fertilized by the rain of Ouranos, the sky. This was not just a beautiful metaphor for weather, it was a profound creation myth describing the genesis of life itself from a celestial union. Cultures worldwide have stories of life falling from the heavens, of gods or ancestral beings scattering the seeds of existence across the world. For millennia, these were considered purely spiritual narratives. Now, science offers a stunningly literal interpretation. The Murchison meteorite that fell in Australia in 1969 was found to be rich in amino acids, the fundamental building blocks of proteins. Comets, those ancient icy wanderers, are now known to be packed with complex organic molecules. The mechanism of panspermia provides a scientific pathway for what was once a mystical concept. Life, or its essential precursors, could indeed be raining down upon us, a constant, faint drizzle of cosmic potential. This bridges a profound gap, transforming the myth of a sky god fertilizing the Earth into a testable hypothesis about cosmic chemistry and planetary exchange. If this theory holds, it forces a breathtaking reevaluation of our place in the universe. We are not merely living on a planet, we are part of a vast, interconnected biological system that spans the galaxy. The same comets that were once feared as omens of doom might, in fact, have been the couriers of our very existence. This cosmic lineage suggests that life elsewhere may not be a strange exception, but a common inheritance, a single story written in the dust of stars and shared across the light years. The idea of infinite worlds is not a modern invention. Our ancestors spoke of them constantly. The Norse envisioned Yggdrasil, a cosmic tree whose roots and branches held 9 distinct realms, from the home of the gods in Asgard to the misty land of the giants in Jotunheim. You could walk through a forest and stumble upon a hidden passage to one of these worlds. Celtic folklore was filled with the Fae, a powerful people living in a shimmering realm that existed just out of phase with our own, accessible through ancient burial mounds or at certain times of the year. These were not just flights of fancy, they were sophisticated models of reality that answered a deep human question: what if things could have been different? What if there is a world where a different choice was made, a different king was crowned, or the very laws of nature were subtly changed? This narrative need to explore possibility is now a cornerstone of theoretical physics. The scientific multiverse hypothesis proposes a staggering reality that our universe, with its specific laws and constants, might be just one bubble in a frothing cosmic sea of universes. In some of these parallel realities, gravity might be stronger, making stars burn out in a cosmic blink. In others, the fundamental forces never coalesce to allow atoms to form, leaving a sterile, empty expanse. This is the ultimate expansion of the canvas, a vision of reality so vast it dwarfs our own cosmic story into a single data point. The myth of the 9 worlds and the theory of eternal inflation are born from the same profound human impulse to push beyond the horizon of the known and ask what else is out there. This perspective is both humbling and liberating. In an infinite tapestry of realities, our own existence becomes both a miraculous statistical fluke and one thread in an endless, unfolding story. That philosophical unease about time is written into our oldest stories. A man enters a magical realm, spends what feels like a few days in revelry or service, only to return home and find that decades have passed. Rip Van Winkle awakens to a world that has forgotten him. The Japanese hero Urashima Taro opens a forbidden box and ages centuries in a single moment. These are not just simple fairy tales, they are profound thought experiments about the fluidity of time itself, a narrative intuition that our experience of time's passage might be malleable, not fixed. For centuries, these stories existed as pure fantasy, a metaphorical exploration of how life can pass us by. Then came Albert Einstein. His theory of relativity gave these myths a mathematical spine. He revealed that time is not a universal metronome ticking at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. It is a river, and its current flows at different speeds depending on two things: velocity and gravity. This is time dilation. An astronaut on a hypothetical journey traveling at 90% the speed of light would age far slower than their identical twin who remained on Earth. Upon returning after a mission that felt like a few years, the traveling twin would step out of their ship to find their sibling had aged decades. This is not a theory, it is a confirmed reality. The GPS satellites orbiting our planet have to constantly correct for this effect, as time ticks marginally faster for them in the weaker gravity of space than it does for us on the surface. The mythical time warp was a speculative exploration of a phenomenon that physics would later confirm with breathtaking precision. Those ancient stories captured a deep, human sense that time is relative to our experience, that it can stretch and compress based on where we are and how we move. This relativity of experience, this understanding that our perspective fundamentally shapes our reality, extends far beyond time, influencing our very perception of the cosmos and our fragile place within it. That technological eye now opens wider than ever before. The James Webb Space Telescope is more than a machine. It is the physical embodiment of an age-old dream. For millennia, we imagined an all-seeing eye, a divine gaze that could perceive the hidden order of the universe, from the eye of providence on the dollar bill to the omniscient gods of ancient myth. These were symbols of a fundamental human longing to see the blueprint of reality. The James Webb Telescope makes that metaphor real. It is a mechanical iris staring back into the deepest past, its golden mirrors collecting not just light but time itself. Every image it captures is a message from an era when galaxies were in their infancy, when the first stars were igniting in cosmic nurseries. This instrument is not merely observing, it is witnessing. It fulfills a narrative desire as old as storytelling itself. The desire to be present at the moment of creation, to see the first act of the cosmic play. And what it sees there in that primordial light is already forcing us to rewrite our own story. The early universe it reveals is not what we expected, filled with galaxies that are too massive, too mature, too soon. Our most cherished models of cosmic evolution are being challenged by its data, proving that to gaze back at the beginning is to inevitably change our understanding of where we came from. That single point of origin contained everything we now see. The Big Bang Theory tells us our entire universe, every galaxy, star, and planet, was once compressed into an unimaginably hot, dense singularity. This is not just a scientific fact. It is the modern incarnation of one of humanity's most universal creation stories, the cosmic egg. In ancient Greece, the Orphic mysteries spoke of a silver egg, incubated by the primal deity Kronos, that split to form the heavens and the earth. Hindu texts describe the Brahmanda, the egg of Brahma, from which the entire cosmos unfolds. And in Chinese mythology, the giant Pan Gu slept inside a chaotic egg for 18,000 years before he awoke, cracked it open, and used his own body to push the sky and earth apart. The parallels are breathtaking. The singularity of the Big Bang is the scientific equivalent of that primordial egg, a state of infinite potential where all of space, time, and matter were one. The initial, rapid inflation of the universe is the cracking of that shell, the moment when the fundamental forces of nature separated and the cosmos as we know it began its explosive growth. Both narratives, the scientific and the mythological, grapple with the same profound mystery, how everything emerged from a state of absolute unity. They are different languages describing the same foundational event, one using the mathematics of general relativity and quantum mechanics, the other using the powerful imagery of birth and sacrifice. The moment of creation, however, is merely the first note in a symphony of cosmic evolution, a turbulent history of structure emerging from that initial, brilliant flash. The universe expanded faster than the speed of light in its first fleeting moments. This was not an expansion into space, but an explosive stretching of space itself, a period known as cosmic inflation that smoothed the primordial chaos into a vast, flat canvas. In a fraction of a second, a universe smaller than a proton was blown up to a scale larger than our entire observable cosmos. This violent, rapid establishment of order is a story we have told for millennia. The ancient Egyptians envisioned the god Shu, a divine force of air, thrusting himself between the sky goddess Nut and the earth god Geb, prying them apart to create the space where reality could unfold. On the other side of the world, the Maori people tell of Rangi, the Sky Father, and Papa, the Earth Mother, locked in a tight embrace, their children living in perpetual darkness. It was the forest god Tain who, with his immense strength, forced his parents apart, allowing light and life to flood into the world. These are not coincidental parallels. They are the human mind grappling with the same fundamental transition, the moment when structure was born from unity. Cosmic inflation is the scientific expression of this primal separation. It is the mechanism that took a hot, dense, and formless singularity and gave it room to breathe, to cool, and to eventually coalesce into everything we see. This initial act of division did more than just create space. It wrote the first laws of physics into the fabric of the cosmos, establishing the conditions for the next great narrative to begin, the forging of the very elements that would one day become us. The first stars were pure and simple, giants of hydrogen and helium burning in the pristine dark. They lived fast and died young, and in their spectacular deaths, they gifted the cosmos with something entirely new. The carbon in your cells, the oxygen you breathe, the iron in your blood, none of these were present at the beginning. They were forged in the most violent workshops imaginable, the cores of massive stars and the cataclysmic furnaces of their supernova deaths. This cosmic alchemy is called stellar nucleosynthesis, and it is the hidden science behind some of our most enduring myths. Across cultures, people told stories of divine smiths, master craftsmen working in subterranean forges. The Greek god Hephaestus, lame and soot-stained, labored in a volcano, hammering out indestructible armor for heroes and fine jewelry for the gods. Deep in the caves of Norse mythology, the dwarven brothers Brokkr and Eitri worked their magic, creating treasures like Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir. These were not just tales about skilled labor. They were profound metaphors for a process happening light years overhead. The myths correctly understood that the most valuable and powerful substances had a separate origin, that they were not part of the original, formless chaos, but were instead manufactured in places of immense heat and pressure. The heart of a star is a nuclear forge. Under unimaginable gravity and heat, atoms of hydrogen are smashed together to form helium. In larger stars, this process continues, building heavier elements layer by layer like an onion. Carbon, oxygen, neon, and finally, iron accumulate in the stellar core, but iron is a dead end. It cannot fuel further fusion, and when it dominates the core, the star's balance is broken. It collapses in on itself in a fraction of a second, then rebounds in a shattering supernova explosion. The blast is so energetic that it forges every element heavier than iron, from the gold in a wedding ring to the uranium in a power plant, scattering them across interstellar space. This is the true smithy of the gods. Hephaestus's volcano is the heart of a supergiant star. The dwarven hammer striking the anvil is the shockwave of a stellar explosion. The artifacts they created are the very elements that would one day coalesce into new stars, new planets, and ultimately into us. We are not just children of the universe. We are literally made of stardust, the recycled remnants of ancient, long-dead suns. This poetic truth, celebrated for its beauty, is also a scientific necessity. Without the life and death of those first generations of stars, the universe would be a sterile place, incapable of building a planet like Earth or a molecule as complex as DNA. The forge of the gods did not just make powerful objects, it made life itself possible. Our cosmic address may be far more unique than we ever dared to believe. The rare Earth hypothesis confronts us with a humbling inventory of our own existence. For intelligent life to arise and flourish, a staggering sequence of cosmic and geological conditions must align perfectly. It begins with a stable, long-lived star, one that will not flare violently and sterilize its orbiting worlds. Our solar system also needed a giant guardian, a planet like Jupiter, whose immense gravity acts as a cosmic vacuum cleaner, deflecting comets and asteroids that might otherwise cause extinction-level impact. Then there is Earth itself with its active plate tectonics, a process that recycles carbon and regulates our climate over eons, and our unusually large moon, which stabilizes the planetary tilt, preventing wild climate swings that would make complex life impossible. Each of these factors is a fragile link in a chain of improbability. This scientific perspective echoes a theme found in countless creation myths, the idea that humanity, or our world, holds a special, perhaps singular, place in the grand scheme. For centuries, since Copernicus showed us we were not the physical center of the universe, we have embraced a principle of mediocrity, assuming that if life happened here, it must be common everywhere. The rare Earth hypothesis turns this notion on its head. It suggests that while we are not at the center, we might be alone in our corner, not as a chosen people, but as the winners of the most improbable cosmic lottery. The ancient intuition of being special, of being the children of gods who carefully crafted our world, may have been a prescient, if fuzzy, recognition of this extraordinary fragility. Our planet is not a standard model, it is a masterpiece of rare conditions. This potential solitude is not a comforting thought, but it reframes our entire narrative. If we are the only storytellers in this vast, silent galaxy, then the responsibility to preserve our fragile blue dot and to continue its story becomes the most urgent and precious mission of all. That scientific intuition of a living world now finds its voice in a radical theory. The Gaia hypothesis, proposed by the scientist James Lovelock, presents Earth not as a mere rock orbiting the Sun, but as a vast, complex, and self-regulating system. In this view, the biosphere, the atmosphere, the oceans, and the geology all interact in a delicate dance to maintain the precise conditions that life requires. The planet itself behaves like a single, living organism. This is not a return to superstition, but a sophisticated systems-based framework that echoes one of humanity's oldest and most universal beliefs. Long before Lovelock, the ancient Greeks worshipped Gaia, the primordial mother, the living earth from whom all life sprang. Indigenous cultures across the globe have always spoken of the world as a conscious, sentient being, a web of life where every rock, river, and tree possesses a spirit. For centuries, modern science dismissed these views as simple animism. The Gaia hypothesis builds a powerful bridge, suggesting that these ancient myths were not mere fantasy, but a profound pre-scientific insight into planetary scale ecology. The myth of the living planet was an early recognition of the deep, inseparable interconnectedness of all things. It understood that the air we breathe is shaped by the forests, that the salinity of the ocean is kept in balance by geological cycles, and that the very temperature of the planet is regulated by the life upon it. When we look at Earth from space, we see the truth of this narrative. It is a single, vibrant, and breathtakingly fragile whole. Seeing our world this way, as an integrated being rather than a collection of resources, fundamentally transforms our relationship to it. We are not separate from the system, we are a part of its living tissue. This perspective turns environmental stewardship from a political choice into a biological imperative, a necessary function for the health of the only home we have ever known. Our celestial realm is becoming a battlefield of our own making. The Kessler syndrome presents a chillingly plausible future, a point of no return where a single collision between two pieces of space junk could trigger an unstoppable chain reaction. One satellite shatters, spraying thousands of fragments in all directions. Each of those fragments becomes a high-velocity projectile, capable of destroying other satellites, which then explode into even more debris. In a matter of years, low Earth orbit would be enveloped in a swirling, impenetrable cloud of shrapnel, moving at speeds faster than a bullet. This man-made asteroid belt would render spaceflight impossible, destroy our global communication networks, and blind our weather and observation satellites. We would be trapped on our planet, cut off from the heavens by a barrier of our own discarded technology. This scenario finds a powerful and ancient echo in the myths of celestial warfare. The Norse spoke of the brutal conflict between the Aesir and Vanir gods, a war that shook the foundations of the world and left the divine realm scarred. The Greek Titanomachy was a 10-year war where the Olympian gods waged a violent struggle against the older Titans, a battle that littered the cosmos with the wreckage of fallen deities and established a new cosmic order. These were not just stories of divine squabbles, they were allegories for the terrifying chaos that ensues when a stable system is violently overturned, when the heavens themselves become a dumping ground for the consequences of conflict. The Kessler syndrome is our modern Titanomachy. The spent rocket stages, dead satellites, and scattered fragments are our version of divine wreckage, the fallout from our own technological ascent. The ancient myths warned that polluting the celestial realm had dire consequences, that the sky was a sacred space that could be desecrated. We are now facing the literal, scientific truth of that warning. Unlike the natural, cyclical destruction of a supernova or the gentle drift of a nebula, this is a threat born entirely from our own hands, a self-inflicted wound on our ability to reach for the stars. The silence of the cosmos has always been filled with our own hopeful questions. For decades, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence has aimed its massive radio telescopes at the stars, listening for a pattern, a signal, a whisper of order within the endless cosmic static. This is not a new endeavor, merely a new method. Where once a shaman might have interpreted the flight of birds or the entrails of a sacrifice, a scientist now analyzes a waterfall of data, searching for an anomalous spike in a narrowband radio frequency. The desire is ancient, a deep-seated human need to know if another mind is looking back at us from the vastness. We have traded the sacred grove for the control room, but the prayer remains the same. Tell us we are not alone. A single, verified signal, a message not born of human technology, would be the most profound discovery in history. It would be the ultimate divine messenger, not from a god, but from a peer somewhere in the galactic dark. This scientific search forces a humbling reflection. What would such a message actually contain? Would it be a simple beacon, a cosmic hello, or a complex encyclopedia, a gift of knowledge meant to elevate our entire civilization? The content is less important than the simple, staggering fact of its existence. It would prove that life, intelligent life, is not a fluke confined to our pale blue dot. It would rewrite our story, transforming humanity from a solitary narrator into a participant in a much larger galactic conversation. The silence we perceive may not be emptiness at all, but a quiet waiting for us to learn how to listen. That single word, wow, scrawled in red pen, has become a legend in its own right. It was the summer of 1977, and an astronomer named Jerry Amon was reviewing data from Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope, a routine scan of the sky for any sign of intelligent origin. Then he saw it, a vertical column of alphanumeric code representing a signal so intense, so perfectly confined to a narrow band of frequency where natural cosmic noise is virtually silent, that it defied all conventional explanation. For 72 glorious seconds, this beacon blazed from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, and then it vanished, never to be heard again. It was a perfect modern omen. For ancient sky watchers, a comet was a terrifying and transient sign from the gods, a message written in fire that demanded interpretation. The wow signal is our scientific equivalent, a data point that became a myth. It carried no message, no complex structure, just a raw, screaming peak of power that said one thing: someone or something was capable of this. Its power lies entirely in its ambiguity. Was it a human-made signal reflected off space debris, a previously unknown natural phenomenon? Or was it, as so many have hoped, a cosmic hello, a fleeting handshake from the void? Just like the court astrologers of old who debated the meaning of a new star, modern scientists have been arguing over this single event for decades. It fuels the narrative of contact not with proof, but with possibility, a ghost in the machine that keeps our eyes turned upward and our ears open to the silent sky. We can now frame our ancient question with mathematics. The Drake equation is not a formula for finding aliens, but a structured way to quantify our wonder. It takes that profound mythical query, are we alone, and breaks it down into a series of scientific variables. How many stars form each year? What fraction of those stars have planets? How many of those planets could support life? The equation walks us step by step from the cosmic to the biological, and finally to the cultural, estimating the number of civilizations that might be capable of communication. This is the ultimate bridge between narrative and data. It transforms a philosophical mystery into a research program, giving astronomers a checklist for investigation. The power of the equation lies not in its answer, which ranges from one, us, to millions, but in what it forces us to confront. Each variable is a mirror reflecting the story of our own existence. The fraction of planets where life actually appears makes us ponder the miracle of our own biogenesis. The length of time a civilization remains detectable asks a deeply unsettling question about our own future. Are we a fleeting whisper in the galactic conversation, or a voice that will endure? The Drake equation is the scientific incarnation of our oldest stories, a mathematical epic about life, intelligence, and our place in the great silent dark. We have become the authors of a new creation story, one written not in the distant past but in the geological present. Scientists call this proposed epoch the Anthropocene, an age where humanity itself has emerged as a planet-altering force. Our collective actions now rival the great natural cycles, redirecting rivers, changing the composition of the atmosphere, and triggering a mass extinction. This is a power that ancient myths reserved for deities, for figures like the Greek Gaia or the Norse Ymir, whose bodies were used to fashion the world. The profound difference is that we are not gods, but a biological species that has accidentally stumbled into this role. This scientific reality forges a new and terrifying narrative responsibility. For millennia, our stories explained how the world was made by divine hands. Now, the emerging narrative must be about how we, as a collective global civilization, will choose to reshape it. This bridges the deepest chasm between myth and science, revealing that the power to command the global environment, once the sole domain of gods and spirits, now rests uneasily in our own hands. That newfound power carries an immense ethical burden, a weight far heavier than any mythical hero ever bore. How will our chapter in this story be remembered? Will it be a tale of reckless consumption that led to collapse, or a legend of a species that learned wisdom and chose to become stewards of its only home? Our orbit around Earth now offers a unique vantage point for digging into our own past. The emerging field of space archaeology uses the tools we developed for the stars to look back down, scanning our planet with satellite imagery and remote sensing to find what has been lost to time. From hundreds of miles above, patterns invisible on the ground become clear. The ghostly outlines of ancient roads, the foundations of long-vanished settlements, and even subtle differences in soil moisture can reveal the locations of forgotten cities. This is not science fiction. It is a powerful new way of seeing, allowing us to rediscover the physical footprints of the very cultures that first looked up and told stories about the cosmos. We developed our myths by staring at the heavens, and now we use our presence in that same celestial realm to unearth the homes and temples of the mythmakers. This creates a profound narrative loop, a beautiful symmetry that connects our oldest questions to our newest tools. The technology that lets us map distant galaxies is the same technology uncovering a lost city in the desert or tracing the extent of an ancient empire in the Amazon rainforest. Each discovery from orbit is a recovered chapter in the human story, a tangible piece of evidence showing how our drive to understand the universe has always been woven into our daily lives and our deepest history. This perspective from above gives us a humbling view of the long arc of human curiosity, reminding us that every time we launch a probe into the void, we are also, in a very real sense, learning more about who we are and where we came from. That moment of ascent offers more than just a view. For the astronauts who have journeyed beyond our atmosphere, the sight of Earth from orbit is not merely a visual spectacle. It is a psychological and spiritual event so profound it has been given a name, the overview effect. They speak of a sudden, overwhelming realization. The planet is a single, vibrant, and breathtakingly fragile whole, a blue and white marble suspended in the absolute blackness of space. All the borders and conflicts that define our lives on the ground simply vanish. What replaces them is a deep, intuitive sense of connection to every human being and to the entire living biosphere. This is not an intellectual understanding. It is a felt experience, a shift in consciousness that many describe as the most significant moment of their lives. This modern, technologically enabled revelation is a stunning echo of the enlightenment sought by mystics and philosophers for millennia. From the Buddha attaining nirvana under the Bodhi tree to the Sufi poets yearning for union with the divine, the goal was always the same: to ascend to a higher vantage point, to see beyond the illusion of separation and perceive the fundamental unity of all existence. The rocket has become the modern meditation chamber, and the view from orbit provides the ultimate perspective, achieving in minutes what once required decades of disciplined contemplation. The overview effect is a scientific validation of a mythological ideal. It proves through direct experience that a change in physical perspective can trigger a fundamental change in understanding. This transformed awareness is not a luxury or a curious side effect of space travel. It may, in fact, be the ultimate prize of our cosmic journey, the very key to our long-term survival. As we stand on the brink of becoming a multi-planetary species, this hard-won cosmic consciousness could provide the planetary ethic we so desperately need, a visceral understanding that we are all crew members on a single, precious ship sailing through the void. Our journey through these stories reveals a profound and continuous conversation. The myths our ancestors told were never simple mistakes. They were humanity's first draft of cosmology, a narrative framework built to preserve wonder and ask the most fundamental questions. They were a way of holding onto the memory of a flood, of explaining the strange path of a planet, of giving a name to the terrifying darkness that swallowed the sun. And time and again, these stories intuitively grasped truths that science would later confirm with data and equations. The cosmic egg of ancient tradition finds its echo in the singularity of the Big Bang. The celestial dragon that devoured the sun was a powerful placeholder for the precise orbital mechanics of an eclipse. The great world tree, with its many realms, prefigured our modern scientific speculation about a multiverse. The gap between myth and science is not a chasm to be crossed. It is a bridge, and that bridge is built from our own innate curiosity, our relentless drive to find meaning in the patterns of the world and the sky above. As we push further into the cosmos with telescopes that see back to the dawn of time and probes that touch alien worlds, we must carry both tools with us. We need the rigorous, testing eye of science, and we need the wisdom, the narrative soul of our oldest stories. One tells us how the universe works. The other reminds us why we asked in the first place, and what it might mean for our fragile, precious place within it. Together, they provide the most complete picture we can ever hope to have. This grand story is far from over. The next chapter is waiting for us to write it.